I'm Carol.
And I'm Tony.
And we're old school living in New Zealand.
Bowl. Into the bowl, 1 cup of flour. That's easy. Mix into that 2 rounded tablespoons of sugar. The original recipe had 1 cup of sugar, a teaspoon of yeast, rounded. So this is active dried yeast. You don't want too much of that. In the original recipe it's 2 tablespoons, 2 rounded tablespoons of Surebake yeast. But I've just 1 rounded teaspoon of yeast. Just mix that around so when you put your stir in, you're not, it makes it easier. Okay, 1 cup of cold milk. One cup, and then into that 1 cup of boiling water. You put the water in after you put the milk in, because when the water mixes with the milk it comes to a reasonable temperature for the yeast and it doesn't burn the yeast. And then you just mix that around. I generally use my fingers to mix that around. So I do have a tool that I've been given that you can use, but sometimes it's quite helpful just to make sure that you get all that flour mixed through with the yeast and the sugar, and that will make sure that you get a good active action from your yeast. When you're making here we go, not too much of it. Okay, that's the first stage. You set that aside for 15 minutes, covered with either a tea towel or a lid if you have a lid. Well, here we go. We have given the yeast a chance to work, and if you look there, take your lid off, and it looks like the yeast has really got excited by that sugar. It's working very well. You can tell it's very foamy on top. Now, we add 1 cup of dried fruit. I usually just cover it with warm water. The additional fluid helps as well to puff up the fruit. If you can leave it a bit longer to puff it up, that's better. But it's nicer to have nice plump fruit in your buns. So that goes in. We need 1 rounded teaspoon of salt, which I could have put in before, but I didn't, because I'd rather add it once the yeast is going, so we don't kill the yeast off. 50 grams of melted butter into the mix. I'll show you the Swedish dough mixer in action. It's quite good. Stops you getting your fingers messy. So get that mixed through. I wouldn't use this if I didn't have it. I got given it, and so because I have it, I use it. Why not? And it is a useful tool, but you definitely don't need one. It's mixed through nicely. Now we want 3 cups of flour, and after we've put our 3 cups in, we will just check how it goes against the fluid. It might be, if it's too wet, we don't want to mix too wet, but then again we do want it moist. So 1, 2, well nearly 2. Getting to the bottom of my bag of flour. So it's 3 cups of flour into there, mix that through, and it really depends on how much fluid you put in and how much as to whether that's going to be too fluid. As I said, you want a reasonably sticky mix, but you don't want it too sticky so that it's too hard to handle. So there you can see it's extremely moist. I'm going to add a bit more flour to that. It all depends on the flour that you have as to how absorbent it is. So that's about another 1/4 of a cup in there. Yeah, that's looking quite good actually. That's a nice consistency. Lovely sticky dough, and it kind of gets a little messy at this stage on your hands, but just scrape that into the centre. And you don't need to, but I generally set it aside for a few minutes, or about sometimes about half an hour, just to let it settle. But we can just get going straight away with putting on the floured surface and kneading it. Okay. Next step is to turn your mix out onto a floured board. So we just sprinkle a bit of flour over it. Oops, scrape your dough out. Here we go. Now, your fingers might get a little messy, but don't worry about that. What we're doing is folding. When you're kneading, the idea is that you're first of all stretching the gluten in the flour, but it's also mixing your ingredients. So I generally, some people have different kneading techniques. I don't really follow a particular thing. It's mainly getting the dough stretched out, so turning it over, pushing it down. When you do pull it out of the bowl the second time to make your buns, you'll find that it's a lot less messy. Now this, you're supposed to knead for a good 10 minutes. You can see that I am adding a reasonable amount of flour when I'm kneading this, and that's because I started off with a nice moist mix. And yeah. So you just keep doing that for 10 minutes. Right, so how do you know when you've kneaded the dough enough? The way I always look at it, if you're able to knead your bread like this, and it's got a whole heap less messy, that's the way so it is quite neat. So it's gone from being a sticky mess to being a quite manageable dough. It will still stick to the board, but so you want a bit of just remember that you don't want to put too much flour on it when you're kneading it. You want a nice, moist, soft dough. Okay, so we'll just put that in the bowl. We could oil the bowl, and I have done that before. I usually do it with other bread, but this one I don't think we need it. We just put it in there, and when we get it out, we can just scrape it out with the trusty little dough scraper. A fantastic little tool. So that's it. We'll set that aside for about an hour. Yeah, about an hour to double in size. It can be longer. It depends on the temperature. Sometimes it depends on the dough mix, how it's feeling at the time. And remember that you don't want it to over rise. If it doubles in size, that's when you start making it into your buns. Or if you want to make your buns early the next morning, put this, once it's risen, put it in the fridge overnight, and that makes it actually improves the dough and improves the flavour of your buns. Okay, that's it. Okay, so we've given it some time to rise. We'll just have a look at it, and at this stage I'm going to put it in the refrigerator so that it will stop it rising and I can use it tomorrow morning. So here's the dough, approximately doubled in size. Looks nice, nice and rounded surface, smooth surface. That's ready to go into the fridge for overnight. If I wasn't putting it in the fridge, I'd be turning it out onto the board and making the buns. Okay, it's the next day, and I've taken the dough out of the refrigerator. It was in overnight, and we'll just sprinkle a bit of flour on the board. And well, get the dough. This is the risen dough. It's risen slightly too much, slightly over risen, but when we punch it down, it'll be fine. So it's just taking the dough out of there. Onto the board. Oh, there we go. So, I'll punch it down. We're going to do 2 trays of 12.
Is this stiffer and harder to work at the moment because it's just come out of the fridge?
Yeah, it's cold. So we'll just put this one aside. And well, this one we'll divide up into 24 pieces.
12 pieces.
Sorry, yes, you're quite right, 12 pieces. If you were doing this professionally, you would probably divide them up by weighing them, but we like to have little buns of different sizes.
Go on, say it. You know you're dying to say it.
What? What am I dying to say?
Something a bit naughty.
Me?
Yeah, yeah.
Why? What naughty thing was I going to say?
I don't know. You're the one that likes buns in different sizes.
Well, I prefer a big bun. So we just stretch that over into a bun shape.
Yep. You're going to have to probably show that one again because I wasn't there. So.
This is the way I do it anyway. The other ways of doing it, I presume. You just have to remember, my name isn't Paul Hollywood.
No. But you're a bit of a silver fox like him. So press it out.
Pull it over. Basically, you're stretching the dough again a little to make the bun shape.
And then what are we going to do with these buns?
Rest them for about half an hour to an hour to let them rise again. Maybe if they double in bulk, or as long as they are starting to get a bit of a rise on them. Okay, and onto the baking tray.
A little bit of space between them all because they're going to grow so big.
Oh. That wasn't supposed to happen. Yes, they're going to grow, so they'll end up touching a little. That's all we want. Not too much. You can put them, depends on your preference, you can put them a little bit closer. And then cover them with maybe a damp tea towel or just a bit of greased plastic. Set them aside till they've doubled in size, and you're right.
Anyway, it's time to put these buns
In the oven.
in the oven. Who doesn't like a bun in the oven, eh? Yeah. And we're going to cook those at 220-ish for about 15 minutes.
Now to make the syrup, about half a cup, maybe a little less, in the bottom of the pan, small pan. Yeah, that'll be enough, I think. Yeah. plenty. Then we just cover that with cold water. You do not mix it up. We've discovered that by trial and error. If you start mixing it up, it just tends to be more crystalline when you brush it on your buns. So on the stove, turn that to about medium to medium high, and then we wait for that to start bubbling away. Right, now that's bubbling away, I'll just turn it down to medium. I just want it to keep bubbling away to reduce that water. Wow, look at those buns fresh out of the oven. Here we're going to put the syrup over them. A nice little pastry batch to brush it all over them. They can be cooked to a darker colour than this if you want to. I generally prefer them slightly darker than this, but some other people in the family like them pale like this. So, however you want them.
I guess, no.
You guess what?
No. Some other people he's talking about is me. Look at that beautiful gloss and shine.
And of course, keeping the wife happy is very essential.
Exactly.
I'll go over those a second time too, because
You can never have too much.
you can, but
Yeah, actually, too much and they go a little bit soggy. And nobody likes a soggy bottom. Nobody.
yes, we all like I like a plump bottom, but not a soggy one, that's for sure. There we go.
Oh, they probably could have been cooked a bit longer, Tony.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Why do you say that?
they're very soft, aren't they? Oh, sorry, I'm supposed to come in over here. Beautiful. I suspect we'll keep you on for another year. I'll have to do the ultimate taste test here and decide. Okay, beautiful. And I'm going to flick on the kettle because
We have a cup of tea.
gotta have a cup of tea with these bad boys. And here's the buns that I made. Not too shabby looking, not too shabby at all. Put my buns next to Tony's, and most people wouldn't know the difference, but I know he's got tighter buns than I have. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like and comment. We'd really love to hear from you.